Hi everyone, and welcome to the Rags to Riches show with myself, Terry Blackburn. Today's guest is a guy I actually got talking to online originally, a guy called Dee Ludlow. He's got quite an interesting story, which I'm sure a lot of people will be able to relate to, and he's pulled some gems from and pulled some lessons from it as well. Really interesting guy. Every time I speak to him, he's in a different part of the world. So we'll find out a little bit more about that. Into business, into property, into crypto. He's got an online sort of networking community called the 5 a.m. Club as well. So really interesting guy. So welcome to the show, Dee.
Appreciate it, Terry. Glad to be here. Yeah, all good, all good.
Good. Well, thank you very much for coming on, mate. I know you're a busy man. So what we like to do, Dee, on the show is talk about your life so far and extract as many lessons and learnings as we can from it, to hopefully inspire and motivate other people from your story. So imagine if you partitioned your life up into three parts. First part would be obviously the start, where your upbringing, getting into business, starting off in your career. The middle part would be the exciting part, the growth phase, where you've achieved the things that you've achieved. And then the current part is obviously where you are now, what you're currently looking at, where your head's at, where your attention is, what you're looking at going forward. So if you just want to start with the start part, Dee, that would be great, and share some lessons in this sort of story.
Yeah, so I feel that, I had a good upbringing, and my dad sort of introduced me to business quite early. So he gave me the Rich Dad Poor Dad book when I was about 15.
Wow.
So I read that early. I went on my first actual Rich Dad seminar when I was, the same year. So just before my 16th birthday, back when there was no redemption mortgages and credit card deposits and stuff. So that was interesting, and it opened my mind. But I think I was just a bit immature at the time. And, when you're young, I wasn't the best in school. So I like to just, spend time with my friends. So I didn't really take it serious back then, but it was always in the back of my mind. And then, I actually started to, when I first left school, I did start to work for my dad, and I was training to do my CMAP to be a mortgage advisor. But again, I was just way too immature at the time, and didn't follow it through, and decided to just go and do all the things that I shouldn't have been doing. And
everything you do at that age,
yeah. So I didn't really follow anything through at that point, and I was quite lost really for years. So I was in and out of business. So I started like quite early on, the old paper round when you're a kid and save up for your first car. I did all that type of stuff, and washing cars, washing dishes in restaurants, just to do that. And then me and my friend one summer started like this gardening business where we just go around and do different bits of gardening for people. And that sort of opened my eyes, where I could actually, go and do something, so someone would pay me directly rather than go and get a job. So from there, I pretty much probably tried everything from, gym supplements shops, barber shops, meal prep companies, pretty much anything you can think of. And I learned a lot through, for one, that when it comes to JVing with people, and it took me a long time to realize what I should be looking out for with people, and then two, the valuable lessons you learn from just taking action and being in business, to me, I feel has paid dividends now. So a lot of the people that took the sort of educational route, which look, I got no issue with. I think it's great that people need to do whatever they want to do. But my mum always used to give me stick, and when like, look at this friend, he's in uni, he's studying to be a lawyer, this friend doing this. And I was the guy who was just trying to be an entrepreneur. And then, look, it's not like a told you so thing, but it did take a long time, and it does take a long time to do it. And then when you sort of, it clicks in your head, you're sort of like, I'm glad I did this now. And like I said, not taking away from anyone that's in a job, because everyone has different paths. And to be fair, I probably didn't help myself. I ended up making it a lot harder for myself than I should have, to be honest. It could have been a lot easier for me, but it's the path I took. I had to sort of mature, and learned a lot of lessons along the way. I read quite a lot, but yeah, to be fair, I think I made it a lot harder than I could have.
So was your dad's business in financial services, so mortgages? Was that his business?
Yeah, so he was he did do mortgages, but then he moved on to sort of pensions, estate planning,
Investments and stuff. Yeah.
asset protection and stuff like that. So that's sort of his
All right.
field. And then he went offshore then. So which, you know, sometimes I look back and think maybe I should have just followed it through and was disciplined. But yeah, from like 18 to even 25, I would say I was just, I
Bit off the
lost.
rails. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you're alone on that one. I think a lot of people lose the way and then pull it back. Do you think, just on that, the first thing you said, do you think that original course I know you lost your way a little bit, but do you think the original course maybe's ingrained a few things in you? Did a few things trigger at that point that are still with you now and carried you through what you've done so far? Or?
Yeah, definitely. Like, because I did that sort of seminar back when we was allowed to do them in the room. I don't know. In my head, it was always like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do property because that course, and I loved it. But it was one of those things where at the time where I don't think I was ready, I just kept pushing it into the future and just putting it off. And it's weird because it's the total opposite of who I am now. Like, I would prioritize things that, looking back, probably didn't matter at all, over just getting stuck in. And when I see some of the younger people now, like 16, 17, 18, going out there and really putting effort in, I'm like, you lot are going to be superstars because you know how quick you can do things, especially in property and in business. Like, things take time and it is hard, but when the switch goes off, things can happen quite quickly. So for starting 20 years old, I'm like, I admire that, for people to have their head in the game so young.
No, I agree with that. I know you're a father. I'm a father. I've always had it in my head that I'm going to try and encourage my kids to read, do seminars, and I'll do them with them at that early age. I mean, is that where you're thinking as well? Are you thinking that for your children as well?
Yeah. So for me, like, I want them to do whatever they want, right? I'm like, do whatever you want, but I want you to be educated on certain things along the way. So at least they have the knowledge if they want to action it, but I still want them to do what they want. So if they say to me, the one says, I just want to be a ballerina, then carry on. You know, if they want to go and be a teacher, carry on. But I'd like them to know how to handle my estate when I'm not there, or even just have the knowledge to be able to do stuff if they want to, and then they can decide to follow their passion. But yeah, I'm the same. I definitely want to sort of get it across to them, to be like, this is the world. And one thing that I wish I was taught when I was younger was, I wish my dad said to me when I was picking different things and career paths I wanted to do, I wish he said, what life do you want? Like, how do you want your life to look? And I always was like, I want to do this. I want to be able to travel and do different things. Now, the stuff that I was originally thinking about doing when I was younger, one was, I did want to be an architect when I was younger, even though I'm terrible at drawing and stuff. It was just an idea. And then I was like, I want to be a PE teacher because that's the only lesson I used to like. And then I want to be, in sport. So I wish he said back then, like, especially like when I said I want to be a teacher or whatever, where she was like, do you know the ceiling price on the career you want? Because if he said, what do you want to do? And then told me what the ceiling price was, then they wouldn't have added up. They wouldn't have aligned. So then I want to tell that to my kids. I want to be like, what do you want to be? And then whatever it is, I'm like, well, this is the ceiling unless you open your own business and take the next step.
Yeah.
You on this life, they don't add up. So I just want you to know that before you take 5 or 6, 10 years to work it out. And then you're like, I need to do something else. So that's something I really want to say to my kids is, look, do whatever you want and I'm support you with it. But if you want a certain life, some people don't, but if you do, then you're not going to get it in now unless you do it a certain way.
I think that's a really good point, because when you're younger, you don't, the concept of a ceiling and the concept of how far a certain career path can take, you have no concept of that. You don't understand that until you mature and get a bit older. So that's a really, really good, relevant, important point, I feel. So love that. Thanks, Dee. So that's a start. So before we go in the middle, what was the first business that took off? Then that kind of leads us into the middle part. But because I know you've got a couple of different things, one in America and things. Could we just talk a little bit about that? Because I'm quite interested in this, because I don't think you know all of this. So I'm quite interested myself in this.
so so the thing that really, the thing I found most passion with was just diversification. So like, I do believe you need to specialize before generalizing, because otherwise you're going to be all over the place. But for me, when I started to really understand the financial markets, property, and just the way things move and work, and I like researching about the economy and the macro side of it. So that sort of really made me feel the need to diversify more, not just in different assets, but also globally. So I was like, now I looked at sort of, I'm similar to you, right? I want to see how far I can take it, right? I feel that I'm nowhere near max potential, so I want to see how far I can take it. And something someone asked me recently was, what's your number? And everyone's got their number, and the person that asked me has already done exceptionally well. And I was like, why do you ask? And they're like, because you're probably gonna, before you reach your number that's in your head now, you're already going to be so far gone in the life you want, maybe the number becomes irrelevant, because then you're going to want to maybe focus on family and stuff like that, and sort of get a bit more balance. But I was like, yeah, maybe, but I also do want to see how far I can take it. So I looked at the wealthiest people in the world and how they accumulated their wealth. And the same thing kept coming. So most of them definitely didn't get rich by just buying property. People didn't get rich by buying gold. People didn't get rich just by buying stocks. Well, a lot of them, it was just the same thing. It was just business, either building a business, which is very hard, as you know, especially a successful business, or acquisition. So I'm like, okay, when I was in like very dead set on just property, I was like, this is great. But as you know, unless you've got like a portfolio of like really high cash flow and HMOs, or you're in the development space and, you know, you've got cash flow to sort of take you through developments, etc. Buy to lets do take a long time to get you a very nice life. And I believe is nowhere near as passive as the education world makes out. I've been acquiring businesses, which I'll get onto now, and I get less calls from people that run the businesses than I do from my management company on property, which is, I find crazy, because I think
a hell of a lot of people would think the majority would think it's the other way around.
Yeah, and really it should be, because there's way more moving parts of a business, and there's more stuff that can go wrong on a day-to-day basis. But I just feel that, you know, that property can be passive, and I do think that the social housing or the long leases is sort of the route I would prefer to go down. It depends on the individual. I'm more of a hands-off guy. I like to just enjoy travel and life, whereas some people like to be hands-on. But I think people forget, building like a buy-to-let portfolio, for instance, you're building a business. That's a rental business. So business takes time, and business takes systems and processes. So, but people think it's just buy, refurb, refinance, forget, and that's just not what happens, as you know. So for me, when I looked at property, I was like, this is a great asset to hold, because arguably the best asset as far as cash flow goes. You know, you can get cash flow and bonuses, the capital appreciation over time. So I love property for that, and I always invest in it. But I was like, this is way too slow for me. Like, I'm quite an impatient person. I'm like, well, how do I, you know, I'm all for delayed gratification, because I believe that that's needed more in society now than ever. Everyone's just instant all the time. But I was like, I need something a little bit quicker than property. This is just taking too long. And I do feel that I was doing it quite quick, but it was still too long for me. So I was like, I want to make this an asset that I buy to build long-term wealth, and the cash flow is just, you know, is there as a bonus, and I can just, you know, just let it grow. Same as stocks, even high dividend stocks, it was like too slow. Crypto moves fast, but really it was like, for me, again, I'm heavily involved in crypto, but I'm more in, I want something that cash flows me monthly, that I can just have, forget, and build on it, right, and compound on it, which crypto is just one of the assets I like to hold in the portfolio. So when I seen that, you know, Warren Buffett, people look at him and think he's just he invests in stocks. Well, no, Warren Buffett acquires businesses, right? He's the acquisition guy. Bezos, acquisition guy. Amazon's bought everything, right? So, and then you look at Musk. Musk has built businesses. Like, he's great as an innovator that he builds and builds and builds, and he manages to get a load of VC to come in and invest in him and grow quite quickly. So I'm like, this is like a bit of a trend here. Everybody that has sort of made it to where they are, they're in the world of acquisition. So I'm like, I need to be in this world. So then that and I'm like, look, I can get a buy to let now. Let's say you get one which is not cash flow and huge amount, but let's say it's £200 a month off a 3-bed buy to let in Wales, right, or whatever. And you're like, okay, you're doing a lot of work in the grand scheme of things for £200 a month, right? Even if it's a unicorn and you pull all your money out and there's infinite ROI, at the end of the day, it's still a lot of work for that £200 a month, even though it is technically forever or whatever. Now, when you're acquiring a business, you can still do it similar to property with little to sometimes no money, but you're then capturing, let's say your minimum was 100K profit per business. You're now capturing 100 grand annual profit pretty instantly. Yes, there's certain ways if you defer the consideration over time, but you're now in a process where you're capturing huge amounts of money from different areas. And some, it could be £500,000. You could be like, well, I'm now taking control of £500,000 profit a year for this business, and in X amount of time, when the entire consideration's paid off, now I've got access to this money, or I've got access to assets in the business, or however you want to leverage the business. So I'm like, this is what I want to be in, because this now, my target number increased by 10 times when I understood mergers and acquisitions. Literally, I 10x my goal, because I'm like, now this is achievable. Like my initial goal seemed never easy, but it seemed too easy. I'm like, when you first complete on your first business, you start to feel that, well, this can happen now quite easily. My first target. So I'm like, I think I need to increase my target number, which like the person that asked me, which was my cousin, he was like, I think that you're going to get to a level where you're probably, being like a family man, you're probably going to get to a figure and then you're going to take a step back, which that may happen. But I suppose we all have to have goals and target numbers. Yeah. And you're in business yourself, and you've done very well for yourself too. So you see how the compounding of business is so much more than anything else.
Yeah. I think that's a really important point. I don't think there's too many people shouting about that. There's a hell of a lot of people shouting about property. There's a hell of a lot of people shouting about crypto, isn't there? Yeah. But chatting about businesses, I think, is maybe missed a little bit. And you're right, the cash flow and the income and the lifestyle that a business can create is a lot more than an average portfolio, isn't it? For sure.
Yeah. Okay. There's two ways you can look at it. Like, you can either look to acquire businesses that already has sort of management structure in place that you just sit on top as sort of like the beneficiary, and you don't really get involved, and unless something really goes wrong, they contact you. Or you can buy yourself a job, and even if it's a part-time job, if I was to say to you today, do this, learn this, and then maybe in 6 to 12 months time, or if it's achievable, if it depends on how hard you work, you can acquire a business even with just 100K profits, then that could probably replace, I would say, 99% of people's income in the UK or the US, wherever you are. And if you can get control of that income, and you can maybe only work part-time for it, if you did want a job out of it, then it gives you that more flexibility and a bit more freedom in your life, and you get paid more.
Definitely. So let's talk about the businesses you've acquired then. So I mean, is the 1, is the 5, is the 10? How many businesses do you own at the moment from doing?
So at the moment, I've got an interest in 9, and it has happened fairly quickly, but I try not to get involved in them as much.
Quite impressive. Still quite impressive.
Yeah, that's obviously including like the coaching and property and stuff. But I'm in the process. My goal is to build a group of companies, whether that be 2 or 10, like less the better to me. I'd want less.
Less just like more profit, less. Yeah,
like when you get into property, like your ego gets the better, and you're like, I want to own everything, and you want to own as much as you can. And then you're like, well, when you start doing deals that give you like £700-800 a month cash flow, you're like, yeah, I'd rather put more money in and get this type of deal than own 10 of those little ones. So same as this. At the start, I was like, I want to get a big group of companies, 10 or 20, and then exit to private equity down the line. And that was my goal. Now it's the same goal, to exit to private equity at like a 7 or 8 times multiple. That's my plan. But now I want to do it with less. So if I can, I've started to sort of merge a few together now, because I'm sort of targeting the gas and electrical industry. I'm trying to merge them together, get bigger contracts. So I only have to really have the control over 2 or 3, rather than keep bolting on like 8, 9, 10, and then it just starts to get a bit complicated, and you got more people involved. I'd rather just be like, look, I get 2 or 3, get to, you know, a couple of million annual profit, to then maybe look for a private equity firm that will entertain something at, you know, a couple of million annual profit, to then give me a decent multiple to exit down the line, however long that takes.
And what would you do with the big check? You know what you would do?
I probably don't, but like you know yourself, like you've got loads of staff, right? So you understand how hard it can be to manage staff at certain times.
Oh, yeah. It's the hardest part about business for me, by a million miles.
I agree. Like, that's why I like to delegate that part. But yeah, it's a good question, because something that someone else said to me, someone in my class, is a bit of a mentor, was like, when you get to, say, I don't know, 3 million annual profits, you know, because everyone talks about turnover, but the profit is all that matters.
That's all that matters. Yeah,
exactly. So when you get to 2 or 3 million annual profit, you're going to be in a situation where, you know, you can pretty much do whatever you want anyway. So
true.
Do you then take that to 5 or 10 million and keep growing it and then look for the multiplier, or do you continue to do what you want? Because if you can get a business at 2-3 million annual profit that's completely automated, then is it going to be much different to get maybe 14, 16, 18 million quid buyout? Or what's the difference? You're just going to have it all in one go. So that's another thing that I probably have to consider down the line. But the overall goal is just freedom of choice. But I feel that I sort of have that now. But you probably, the more money you get, the more things, the bigger the prizes you give yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but another thing that you've probably experienced, when you get to I used to have targets, and then when you hit the targets, the stuff you want to buy when you hit the target, you don't tend to buy. That's how I feel. So I was always like, oh, when I do this, I'm going to get this, and do this and get this. And then when you get it, you're like, I don't really care if I have that now. I can get it. I know I can, but I don't want it at the moment. So because you start, you know, your risk management changes, because now you're on to bigger things. So if I got it, I'd probably, looking at it now, I'd like to think that I would take a couple of years off, spend time with the family and travel.
Yeah, a couple of weeks max.
But I probably would. I'll tell you what I would like to do. Now, startups is something that I probably wouldn't like to get involved in now, because I know how hard it is, same as you know. And that's why I'd rather just buy a business that has history and they've done all that. But one thing I would like to get involved in, which I was almost involved in quite recently and it didn't turn into anything, was a blockchain startup, because I love the technology behind blockchain now is going to affect the world. So I would love to get involved in some young, ambitious, you know, kids that got something that's special. Because look, the new generation now, I feel like far outweigh what we're doing as far as the technology stuff. Like, you know, I feel that I'm quite savvy technology wise. Then when you speak to some of these kids, you feel like, whoa, I'm like a dinosaur. So, so the stuff that they can do with coding and different things, I'd love to get involved in something like that, because I feel that it's going to have a big place in our future. But that's probably something I would like to do, and become more of a VC, where I'm just like looking at, I would love to do that, because I know how hard it was for me. I couldn't find investment in some of the stuff. Like, I had a business before where it was like a meal prep kiosk in St. David's in Cardiff shopping centre. It's in the main shopping centre. Landsec, the company, was like, you can put this across 16 of our shopping centres. And I was like, I want to scale this. But I could never find the right investor that would take a chance on me, even though I'm in like the biggest shopping centre in Wales. I was like, you know, we're already doing pretty good, but I couldn't take it to the next level. So in the end, it didn't come of nothing. But so I would like to be that person to step in, because, you know, you've got to spare money there that, you know, I don't mind. And if it comes to something cool,
Yeah.
I'd obviously do my due diligence, but I would love to get involved in like a tech or blockchain startup. And because the multiplier is so much more on those businesses.
Well, yeah, the return's massive.
And I think it gets to a stage where, like, I love helping people. So like the only reason I even entertained coaching was because it was one of the things going back to when I was a child. My dad was like, what do you want to be? And I remember taking a basketball class for some kids when I was like 16, 17. And I was like, I want to do this. I want to be like a life coach or something, you know, because some of the kids I was teaching was like getting in trouble. They was, you know, misbehaving, or they had like difficulties learning. So, and I enjoyed helping them, teaching them, not just about basketball, but about life. So for me, I was like, I want to do this, but I didn't feel that I could coach until I felt ready, until I'd achieved a certain amount. And then, to be fair, it was quite recently, over the last 12 months or even 6, I would say, really, 12 months, I was like, now I'm ready. I feel I can really add value to people's lives. I feel that if I did coach someone, I could take them from there to there. Whereas before, I didn't want to just do it. Like a lot of these coaches are out there becoming coaches just to make money. And for me, like, yes, you've got to get paid for your time and get paid for what you love to do. But at the same time, you need to be able to show people that you can give them results. And I was going to ask you, what would you do with the money?
I've had so many conversations about this. I've came up with something. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go somewhere hot and I'm going to sit there beside the beach. I can visualize it really clearly. That's why I know it's probably going to happen. I'm going to sit there, I'm going to have a beer, and I'm going to have a notebook and pen. I'm just going to think, right, what next? What do I want to achieve in my life? The coaching thing does kind of interest me as well, because I like helping people. That, you know, I do 3 training sessions a week with my team, and I've helped a lot of them go from nothing to something, from skint to making 50 grand, 100 grand, from having no property to having 5 and 10s. So I've helped a lot of people do that already, but I love that. I quite love the how much they think of me, that feeling of being like Terry's done this for me, Terry's contributed to my success, or I wouldn't be where I am without Terry. That's just for me anyway. I just love that feeling. So there'll be an element of that. But I'm running at quite a fast pace, and I have done for about 12 years, as in I'm flat out all the time. When I get the big check, I think I'd like to do something that's less intense, because my life is this, you know. Although I am spending a lot of place, property and everything else, and I am a very busy person, I think I'd like something where I get that feeling of, you know, people think highly of us. That's obviously well paid, and something that's just not as intense in terms of hours that I input. Property I'll always be involved in. Like you said, it's great. I love it, but I don't know, mate. You know, we might be at a beach sometime. We'll say, remember that? You never know, mate. You never know.
What's next?
Yeah, man. Okay, thanks for that, mate. Really, really interesting that. I didn't actually know all of that about you, which is really interesting. Fair play to you as well for what you've achieved.
Appreciate that.
So we've done sort of the way you started off, what you're currently doing now. Obviously spinning a lot of plates. I can see business is a real passion of yours. I can see that, the acquisition side. What's your attention on now? I know you're doing the 5 a.m. club. A lot of the stuff like online I see anyways, the crypto stuff. What's your attention on now, and sort of what are you looking at doing going forward?
So the one is obviously still the building the group. That's sort of my main attention. But then
is that your priority? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but just because that's my main goal. But I also the coaching stuff, I'm really focused on that now. We've got, you know, I've got 1 or 2 mentees now, that I got one that's in the process of potentially completing on a deal that is about 950k profit a year. And I'll be honest, I was like, I wish this was my deal.
Wow.
So my passion is to do that, like to take, like you just said, to take people out of what they're currently doing and then replace it with something else that they enjoy, or something that gives them more freedom. So building the coaching stuff, and the 5 a.m. club for me I put it in place mainly because I felt that before COVID, so that was like born at like the start of the lockdown. But I felt that every mentorship or course I've done, the minimum was 5 grand. The most expensive was like 24 grand. So it was like, there's nothing really out there that I can do, or someone can do, that doesn't break the bank for a lot of people. So I was like, what if I could create a platform that gives them the value across many different industries from many different walks of life, real walks, like you spoke on there. And like, I think that when you was motivating people and you told people your story, you could see all the shares afterwards. People was inspired by it because they see a real person that's taken their life from this to this and now are very successful. So for me, I was like, if I could, rather than give them like the old boring course content, why don't I just get real people on there to give them their real stories, case studies, add value, and give it at such a low barrier to entry that anyone can afford to do it. That was what I wanted to do. And I feel that we created that, and it's still there now. Everything gets saved. Like your episode will be watched over and over again for however long he's on there, which will be forever. So, and I like that people can go back. So if you join today, you can still watch everybody else's back. And yeah, so I feel that it was needed in the space. And now I see a lot of people taking it online monthly subscriptions, which is a lot cheaper, and giving that content because it was so overdue. But I feel that the pandemic sort of helped people realize, oh, I can do this online and I can do it. And I don't have to, because people sort of put stuff off because they're like, I'm too busy. But if you can't wake up at 5 a.m. for an hour and give that once a week, then you're never going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did you start that last year during the whole COVID situation? Was it just started last year, was it?
Yeah, it was an accident. So I literally found myself getting a bit too comfortable in lockdown at the start. And I was like, wasn't getting up early. I was binge eating. I was just getting bored. And I was like, how long is this going to last? And the gyms were shut and everything. And I was like, I contacted a few friends and said, look, let's just jump on a call at 5 a.m. It's way out of our comfort zone, especially for me at the time. I was waking up at like 8 because I just lying in. And I was like, let's get on the call at 5 and just talk about business and maybe we can help each other. And because, as you know, social media, people started to share it. And then the next week we'd have more. And it got to a stage where it was way too many people to have like free flowing conversation. We couldn't really have a conversation because there was like 20 on there. Yeah. So I asked one of the guys who did a lot of NLP, his name was Ian, and I was like, would you mind doing like, I think he actually mentioned to me, and I was like, why don't you do like a presentation on NLP and about mindset? And then that's sort of like a catalyst. Everyone wanted to do it then. And then I was like, it was taking so much of my time up. I was like, my friend was like, mate, you need to monetize it. I'm like, nah, that's going to take it away from what it's doing. He's like, nah, don't be like doing £150 a month on a thing. Do something cheap, like 30 quid a month that, because it's taking your time up. And I was like, for me to, I was just going to just not do it anymore. But I was like, for me to like put some time into this, I need to charge so I can put someone else in place to organize it all. And that's what we did. And I was like, you know what, for the money, 30 quid a month, it's a no-brainer to get it, even to listen to you, for instance, just you. I've seen the value you gave. If that's not worth 30 quid, then I don't know what is. And then you can add like another 200 hours of that on the platform. Then, you know, if you don't want to, so yeah.
I think that even this, I say this a lot of my guys, even the fact of just getting up earlier and doing, I tell my guys, even if they just watch a 5-minute motivational video on YouTube or anything, it just puts you in such a better place for that day, doesn't it? So going on with a lot of like-minded individuals and listening to proper stories, it can only benefit them in every part of their life, can't it? You know, there's loads of books that talk about the importance of getting up early, isn't there? The Miracle Morning was an unreal one for me. But yeah, it's such a simple thing that anybody can do tomorrow, regardless of the income levels, where they're at in life. They can get up at 5 a.m. tomorrow.
And I know a lot of people mention, like some people who's already sort of, experienced a bit of success. I see them post and say, you don't need to wake up at 5. You don't need to do this. You don't need to. And I'm like, look, you don't. If you don't want it, you don't have to. But as far as I'm concerned, if I wake up at 5, I definitely get more done in the day. I'm way more productive and I feel buzzed, where, you know, it's not for everybody. Some people are more like of a sort of night owl and some people are morning people, but I was never a morning person, but I put myself and discipline myself to be one. And I prefer it because I feel like there's nothing, I much prefer to wake up early to like birds sort of chirping in the morning and wait or go to sleep really, really late. It's just what I prefer. And, you know, and for me to set me up for the day, it helps me because I get a chance to, especially having children like yourself, I feel that like I beat the day a little bit because I'm more productive because they're in bed. Where if I wait till like 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, my morning is game over.
Chaos. Yeah, it's chaos. Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
You said something there, Pete, the day that's part of the reason why I like it, because I feel like I'm ahead of other people.
Yeah.
Right. I like to text people really early in the morning, like in all my WhatsApp groups. I text people good morning, hope you have a great day and all this. But I feel like I'm getting ahead of my competition. I feel like I've got an advantage, which I personally like that feeling. If I feel like I'm getting ahead or I'm just progressing quicker than other people, not necessarily beating other people. It's not a competitive thing. It's more like if I feel like I'm ahead, you know what I mean? If I feel like I'm progressing quicker than I can do or than I should do or than others, I like that feeling, me.
Well, it is that sort of feeling of the competitive advantage, and I like that too. Like as a competitive person, I do feel like if you look at, you know, even sportsmen like Kobe Bryant, he says that I go to the gym 2 hours before and stay 2 hours after, because if I'm adding an extra 4 hours training a day, I'm going to be light years ahead of people, and I'll compound, and then I'll hit exponential growth, and they won't be able to keep up with me. So I feel that it does, and it does pay. If you can consistently do it and you stay disciplined, over time, you will see the disconnect between you and other people, because you're going to feel like you need to level up because you've outgrown everyone around you. And that's how it's worked for me, and it seems to be the same for you. So I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, definitely. Ronaldo just recently said it on that interview with Piers Morgan as well. Yeah, I've seen that. Okay, cool. Thanks for that, Dee. That's great. Just a couple of other questions I had for you, really. So we talked about your story, which is fascinating. There's loads and loads of lessons there, I feel, that people can extract and implement in their lives. So what advice would you give for, this is an interesting one for you, actually, because you are that diverse, doing all these different things. I'll change the question.
Okay.
If you could pick one thing for young people getting into property, crypto, business acquisition, what would be the thing? If you could only pick one, what would be the thing?
Business, 1,000,000%. There's nothing out there that can give you the same ROI. Yes, you could have bought Bitcoin in 2011 and whatever, but let's be fair, if you to get real ROI and maintain consistent cash flow and have a nice lifestyle, business is going to trump everything, in my opinion.
What industries of business would you say are the future?
3D print, VR, AR, biotech, gene therapy, all the techie stuff, I think. But if I was, you know, if I could mold one of my daughters into something now, I'd be like, learn how to code, and understand the technology and blockchain and the technology behind how the technology is going to affect different industries. So, you know, for instance, the housing market, I think, is probably one of the industries that hasn't really been affected massively by tech at all. It's like tech's eating up every industry pretty much, but apart from property, it's just untouched at the moment. So when you start looking at 3D print construction, we've always seen modular. When you start implementing smart contracts to land registry and the legals and the finance side, I think that it's going to be disruptive at the start, but it's well overdue in property. And like I seen the other day that there's a house up for sale now in New York for half the price of everything else in the street because it was done at 3D print. If you can Google it or YouTube it, and it shows you it, and there's no difference to a normal house. It looked like you wouldn't care. It's exactly the same. There's no difference, especially the new generation. They wouldn't. Maybe older people may be like, I want the old, you know, the traditional way of a house being built, but this is just the way it's going to go. And to build that house, it took 3 laborers and a machine, right? So no materials apart from what was used for the machine. So when you look at the developments and stuff, and you're talking 60 or some of these like 1,000 houses now, you know, and when you don't have to have all the logistics of getting the materials there, all the headache of managing hundreds, sometimes thousands of staff, different trades coming in at different times, you just pull a machine up, few laborers per machine, and just print a house. And talking about 3D print, they can print nutritious food now. So I think that is a lot about to happen across many industries. But I think that, I would, if it was me, I'd be like, get involved in tech as early as you can, understand tech, and pick it up as quick as you can.
Fascinating. I'm going to Google that, actually.
Yeah.
I've heard of the 3D print stuff, but I didn't realize they were knotting stuff up in New York. I mean, one thing on that, if it's mortgageable, I don't know how the banks would look at that, but if they become mortgageable, you know, because certain types of construction are mortgageable, that becomes mortgageable and more common. And as you say, when our kids are buying houses, it'll probably be more common then, and more, you know, people won't be too fussed, they won't know any different. All of a sudden, I mean, construction is going to be massively interrupted then, isn't it?
Yeah.
People, I mean, Jesus. But that's fascinating, isn't it?
And it also creates affordable housing that, you know, we don't build enough houses year on year. That's fact. So if you can now knock houses up in like a fraction of the time for a fraction of the price, then I would say lenders have to mortgage them. Like for lenders now, like you'll have to fact check this. I've said it a few times. I still haven't fact checked it myself, but somebody told me that every Taylor Wimpey roof is now modular. So I'm not sure how true that is, but if that's the case already, we already had a discussion, I think a year and a half ago or before COVID, saying would lenders mortgage modular builds, and they do. And
they already do it. Oh, well, there you go then.
So a 3D print, if anything, like I'm not sure which is the most sturdy or whatever, but a 3D print house is no different. It's watertight. It's the same. You would never tell. Like when you Google this, I think they're called SQ4D, the company, and there's another one called Icon. If you look at them on YouTube, you see the house and you're like, whoa, that just looks like a normal house. So it is fascinating technology.
Is the construction time a lot quicker as well? The time to build, or is the time the same, quicker?
Oh, so much quicker.
So quick. Wow, that's crazy.
So yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I think that's going to change a lot of things, especially affordable housing, and sort of getting on top of building houses to keep up a population as well.
Fascinating. Okay, thanks for that. So the show's called The Rags to Riches Show, as you know. What does being rich mean to you? Because you can be rich in monetary terms, you can be rich in time, in relationships, in friends, you can be rich in loads of different ways, but what does being rich mean to you?
Time. The only thing that matters is time. I think I said this on James's podcast, and I'll say it again. I say to a lot of people, imagine you had a clock on the top of your head and you knew the day you was going to die and it was a countdown timer, would you live every day differently? And everyone would say yes. If you knew the day you was going to go, you would treat every day differently. But because we don't know the day and it's uncertain, we just crack on and waste time every day looking at stuff we don't need to look at, spending time with people we shouldn't be spending time with. So time is everything. And rich in monetary terms, all it does is allow you to have flexibility and freedom, which gives you more time. So really, when you think,
circle, doesn't it?
Yeah, people say, what do you want to be rich for? I want to buy Lamborghinis. I want to buy this. I want to buy this. It's like, well, what else do you want? Do you want the time to enjoy those things you buy? And they're like, oh, of course. Well, really, you're buying time. That's all that matters in life, as far as I'm concerned, is time.
Yeah, love that. I'm kind of on the same wavelength there. I think too many people chase the money and they sacrifice everything to get there. Sacrifice the breakdown in relationships, lose contact with the friends. Then they're just purely chasing money when you're losing all of that time. And that's why I feel a lot of people get to a certain age and realize in a little bit of a regret. You know what? I should have really enjoyed it, or I shouldn't have sacrificed as much. I know countless people whose relationships are broke down because all they do is work.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the richest person richest graveyard, do you? There is no point.
No, and you're right. Like, it's all good getting it all, but if you got the people that you wanted to spend the time with when you get it, if they're not there anymore, it's not the same. So
yeah, you're right. I got recommended a book and I haven't actually read it yet, so I can't really say if it's good or not. But I think it was called The 7 Regrets of the Dying. So it's quite a morbid book.
Yeah.
But someone told us about it. A guy called Tony Taylor in London, who I know, and he said one of the regrets was, well, think of it like this. None of the regrets were I wish I worked more. I wish I put more hours in, and I wish I spent more time with friends. I wish I took a chance on that business, for example. I wish I was a better partner to my wife or my husband. It's not really about I wish I put more hours in. I wish I worked 12 hours a day instead of 8, because I would have.
Yeah.
In the book, from what he told me, was they interview people in a hospice and people who were about to die. So it's quite a powerful book. That's it, to be fair. But it's right.
It sounds like a great book. Seriously, it's needed. I think it is. And I love talking to older people, because you get one, access to a generation of people that you wasn't alive to experience. You get access to that. And two, like you said, probably find a common theme there when you ask them, like probably the same as that book, where everyone's the same. They start saying like, don't worry about the people that, don't worry about chasing this. Probably don't worry about vanity metrics and all the other stuff. Just do you, enjoy what you want to do, and make sure you live every day to the fullest, like that. Because we always, when it comes to that stage, or you're in a bit of a situation, we always take things for granted. So it's always good to be grateful too. So if everything is going well for you today, don't forget to be grateful for what you have, because that's what I used to do. I never used to, like, I always used to, well, I never used to give myself that bit of the pat on the back to be like, you've done okay, like, enjoy it. I just used to always punish myself and never be grateful for what I have in the moment. Now I do it, but I didn't used to. And it's quite important, because people don't count the small wins. You don't have to win big all the time. You can, there's a small wins too, and they all count, they all add up.
Love that. And celebrate the wins as well, big
Definitely.
or small. But enjoy yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, man. Well, mate, that's been amazing. Really weird ended, I think, there as well. Really powerful ending. So thank you so much. Just before we shoot off, actually, if anyone wants to find you, Dee, they want to reach out to you, want to find a bit more about you, what's the best way?
Mainly Instagram. So it's at DEE_Ludlow, and or deeludlow.com is my website. But yeah, Instagram's where I post mainly.
Instagram. Cool. Well, Dee, thank you so much. Look forward to whenever you're back in the UK, and you're not floating around the world somewhere. We'll catch up on a pint sometime. It'll be great.
I look forward to it, mate.
Thanks, Dee.
Cheers.